Okay, we're going to play you a little clip. Now, this phone call kind of got sent to me, and then it kind of went around a little bit. But there's a conversation. We're just going to play a little bit of it because it's about 10 minutes long. It's pretty long. We'll play the first minute or so. And it's a German expat living in Shanghai, and well, we'll let him just speak.
Hello, are you Ross?
Yes.
Yeah, we are the you are positive of COVID-19.
I'm not positive. The CDC called me 2 days ago to come to test me, and they never came test me. I was positive about 12 days ago. There is no way I'm still positive, so I'm demanding a new test.
So you think you are negative?
I know I'm negative. There's no thinking.
But now the policy is you have to go to the camping something like that.
There is no policy in place. The CDC called me 2 days ago that they will come test me. They have no people. They have no people to come in to test me. So that's not really my problem if there's no personnel. So get the CDC, get them fucked over here, and take a test, and then we can talk.
Yeah, but
I do not care. I do not care about your policy. I really don't care. Because your system is really fucked up. It doesn't work. I have been in the camp already. They didn't want me. They sent me back home. It's ridiculous. It's a disgrace for you, for the government, for Shanghai, for China. It's a really big joke. So get the CDC, come here, take a test. I'll be negative, and then we can talk.
Now, before we move on, for those of you who don't know the situation, the guy did test positive, and he stayed quarantined in his home for however many days. They took him to a camp, but then they took him back home, and then they phoned him after he'd been testing negative he tested negative a number of times, and they phoned him again saying, okay, now we're going to take you to a quarantine camp. This has actually been happening to a lot of people. People that initially tested positive, but then got over it and then testing negative, even though they've tested negative now consecutively for weeks, because they once tested positive, the government's now coming and taking them to camps, quarantine facilities, even though they are now negative. And I've been seeing a lot of Chinese people complaining about this, and it's an awful situation. It's a big mess up. But the thing to take away from this, because he goes on and he complains and he swears at her and he gets.
He sounds like a German.
Yeah, well,
Germans complain a lot.
Well, I mean, look, he has reason to complain.
I didn't say he didn't.
Yeah, but what Seamilk and I have kind of discussed this, and we've talked about this, and the absolute ridiculousness of him putting up such a fight about this is the fact that he's doing it only because he finally realizes that Shanghai is a part of China. Okay. Because when you live in that Shanghai bubble, you're kind of exempt from what goes on in China. You know what I mean?
To a certain extent.
Yeah, what the average Joe at the lower levels of society in China have to suffer.
Like lifestyle stuff. Yeah. Choices, food.
Yeah.
The things
all
like
the
that.
restrictions.
Yeah, restrictions.
When you're living in Shanghai, it honestly does feel like you're living in the first world. And Shanghai has always existed almost as a separate entity to China.
Legally, it's not.
It's not.
But it does unofficially get away with a lot more.
Yeah, but like for us, for instance, living down south, and we couldn't ride motorcycles because they're banned in everywhere. Okay, but people in Shanghai, what are you talking about? We got a Harley club. You know?
We can ride motorcycles.
Yeah, we can do what we want. That kind of thing.
We're like, shut the fuck
yes, like,
up,
dude, come on. It's that kind of thing. So Shanghai people kind of feel as if Shanghai's like the rest of the first world, basically.
Sure,
okay,
sure.
So he complains about his cats, that he had to pay a lot of money to get his cats looked after while he was in quarantine. He's going apeshit about how can you call yourself a government's ridiculous, screw the party, screw this, it's all a big joke, it's ridiculous, all that kind of stuff, right? So just to show you that this is not an isolated incident, we've got a second one, and this is a woman. Well, we'll just play it so you can hear.
I don't know where she's from, but she's a foreigner.
Yeah, foreigner.
Non-Chinese.
Okay, let's just take a look at the second case here.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna ask again. Can you tell me why you can't transfer me? Tell me why. Tell me. Why cannot I be transferred?
No place.
They're saying there's no place, but then this is not a place for human beings. Even the water its source does not look clean.
I know that.
And then if it's not okay, they bring me back here like this. Is that how it works? Insanity.
A lot of other hospitals, I don't know, but you must.
Yeah, there's no logic in China anymore. I'm so disappointed. You're all disappointed. Everybody's disappointed in Shanghai. Everybody. I'm so disappointed in Shanghai. I've lived here for 11 years. This is like my home. It's like not a home.
We have to point something out here, all right? Number one, we're not trying to get down on people going through a bad experience.
No, I mean, complain.
Here's the thing. What everybody has to go through in Shanghai right now is absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't matter if you're a local, if you're a foreigner, it doesn't matter. But what this demonstrates is this very privileged point that a lot of foreigners have in China. They live a very different lifestyle from your average person.
Yeah.
This woman explains it perfectly. She's like, why can't I be transferred? She's in a quarantine camp with a bunch of local Chinese people, but she wants to be transferred because she says humans can't even live here.
I was going to say the key message, she turns her camera around, shows the Chinese people and says, this is not a place for human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not gaslighting, by the way.
No.
This is not putting words in her mouth, but the point is that she feels as a foreigner that she should have special privilege here. And I got the same vibes from the German guy, and this is nothing against Germans, nothing against her. I don't know where she's from. But foreigners in general, what we saw when we lived in China was that a lot of them, and this has nothing to do with like everyone that lives there, but a chunk of foreigners that lived in Shanghai just could not understand the fact that when they're living in Shanghai, that their life is somehow not different from yours.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what are you talking, like you said, what are you talking about? I can buy cheese here.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I found a shop that has deodorant here.
Sure.
These just absolutely like crazy things that we never saw in China somehow exist in this foreign bubble in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And it really creates this element of, I'm a foreigner in China, so I get special privilege, even in a city that already has special privileges.
Yeah.
I'm above this, right? And I don't like that vibe. I just don't like that because we've always been on the same level as the locals.
That's correct. Well, I mean, here's the real end point of all this, is that Shanghai people have not been exempted from the current lockdowns.
No.
Okay? Usually Shanghai will get away with, whatever's going on in China as a whole, Shanghai can kind of avoid it, if you know what I mean. If there's something kind of negative going on in China, it won't really affect people's lives in Shanghai. And Beijing too, and the bigger cities usually, but Shanghai specifically is always kind of exempt. So, people living there, the rich, sophisticated Chinese people living there, the foreigners living there, they enjoy this first world lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, this is very unfair what's happening to them and everybody in Shanghai. And we know there's a big political motivation behind the fact that the people of Shanghai are being squeezed extra hard right now.
We're getting more and more confirmation on that.
But it just shows you that this is actually how China operates. Your freedoms can be taken away from you in a split second. And this is finally being noticed by some of these foreigners. That's why they're throwing out a hissy fit. Like she said, she's been living in Shanghai for 11 years. First of all, she can't speak Chinese.
Yeah, 如果你只在上海11年，为什么你还没说中文啊？
That's right. If you
还没学习中文。
Exactly. If you have been living there for so long, surely you should be able to speak Chinese to the person.
If you're going to have so many complaints, certainly you should be speaking Chinese.
Yeah.
To get your point across to the people in China. Yeah. You're in China.
And so when the Chinese, the machine of the Chinese government suddenly touches you finally, and you realize, wait, what? Then you're suddenly, this is not a place for humans. I want to be transferred. Starts shouting, Shanghai is a disgrace, all this kind of stuff. Come on. So what we're trying to say here is, first of all, it doesn't help to behave like that. When you're in China, you have to realize you are in China, and that's how it operates. Okay? Number two, it's not your fault. I get it. Any normal person would probably react like that, to be honest. Any normal person, but you have to realize where you are.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're eating junk food and you get fat, you got to realize that it's kind of your fault for eating the junk food.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you're in China and your freedoms get taken away, you got to realize that it's kind of your fault for living in China.
Yeah.
Under the CCP.
Yeah.
And it's no fault of the local Chinese people. It's no fault of these foreigners. It's a fault of the government. But again, there is a little bit of blame to be cast on you for not realizing where you are.
Yeah, I wanted to take just a very moderate approach here. I could see, the system there is absolutely effed. It's so unreasonable what's happening to people in Shanghai. And it's actually, for the first time in my life, I can say this about Shanghai people, is that you're getting the short end of the stick here for a lot of reasons politically. And it's bad. My heart goes out to everyone there. But the foreigners that are just now experiencing 1% of what CCP restriction actually looks like, I mean, you gotta understand, you should have seen this coming from a long time away. Shanghai still is in mainland China. When they want to throw the book at it, they will. And it just kind of makes, I don't want to be like Marco Polo over here and like, we went through the real hard China, you know.
And we don't want to try to be elitist.
I'm not trying to be elitist, but when you see how 99% of people outside of Shanghai live, and when you interface with those people, you're out in the countryside and we're having a bowl of noodles with someone or just chatting with people about their daily problems and things like this. It's so different than what you're complaining about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's not, again, of course you should complain about this. It's a bullshit situation and you're being treated unfairly for sure. So no hate to these people.
Yeah.
Just want some perspective out there that and I think it unfair, like, let me just cap this off by saying, when these people are the voices of what the injustice is happening, because they can get their media out there, because they're foreigners, right? It kind of gives this weird, unfair picture that China is actually more reasonable than it is, because they're complaining about like the first tier of the top level of society.
They're like, look, this is not a place for humans. But I'll tell you what, what she's showing there is if you've seen what these quarantine facilities look like, the one that she's showing here looks very reasonable and clean in comparison. Okay, it's awful. It is, but at the same time, you know, it's pretty reasonable and clean. Now, here's my thing. I don't want to get down on the expats in Shanghai. It's not fair to do that. But I want to ask. Not at all. I want to ask the more entitled foreigners living in Shanghai right now. What do you think about, for instance, the situation in Xinjiang with the Uyghurs now? Now that you've had a little taste of what the Chinese government can do. When they say that they're going to lock people up in their houses, when they say that you must get tested and you must go to quarantine camps and you have no say in it, do you now maybe realize that all of these things that the Uyghurs have been complaining about and human rights activists have been going on about for years and years, like real things, people escaping and telling their stories about these horrible things that have been happening to them and that they've had no choice and no freedom to escape it? Do you now take a little bit of what they said, truthfully now? Do you actually understand it? Can you have some empathy and compassion?
Again, this is, I half read the chat when we're doing this, by the way, and I understand that some of you may think this sounds elitist, but it's not. And we're not trying to be like the heroes of poverty or something here, but I like to use the Uyghurs as an example, because that is something that's contested amongst the elite foreigners in China that say, you know what, well, I'm here, and I personally haven't seen that.
But you're there living in Shenzhen or Shanghai or you're like, Beijing.
Well, that's over there, you know, and maybe that's not even happening. But also, I think a great example is just the average Lao Bai Xing, like the average person in China that's not in a first-tier city.
Yeah.
How many of them have we made meaningful connections with? Thousands, right? And those people are in such a world far removed from your own that maybe now you can kind of understand that China is not necessarily a utopia of Pudong or Sanlitun or these areas of first-tier cities or Nanshan or something like this. China exists outside of these utopias that have been built up to show foreigners that China is developed.
Yes.
And the average Chinese person has to suffer so greatly throughout their life due to government corruption, poverty, right? And a host of other problems, just a lack of any sort of representation or rights. And maybe you're getting a taste of that now.
Well, I saw some statistics that say about 48% of foreigners that are living in Shanghai have now changed their minds and are going to leave once they can. Or whatever.
Yeah,
because I guess this is the first time they've actually experienced how scary it can be when you live underneath a government that can at any moment take your freedom away. Because that's what's happened. People are still locked up. I've got friends in Shanghai that they were part of the initial lockdown. They've been locked up for over a month now.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. Same.
And imagine that. This idea that, okay, we're locked down now, but the government kind of told us that we'd be out in 5 days or whatever.
Yep.
A month later, you're still locked up. And then there have been cases in China where, the lockdown goes away and then they're allowed out and then suddenly a new lockdown happens. So you never know when this could happen next. Now imagine living in that uncertainty. You're living in a country where literally, maybe you get through this one lockdown and you kind of go back to normal, but it can all just happen all over again overnight. You could lose your freedom in a minute. And it's like being in prison. It really is. There's no difference between, in fact, in prison, it's more set up to make sure you get 3 square meals a day and so on. This is kind of like
more uncertain.
Yeah, it's a more uncertain prison. You're not allowed out of your apartment complex. You're not allowed to walk in the streets.
That's a good
You're not even allowed yard time. That's the thing. In
Nope.
prison, you get yard time where
Nope.
you can walk around the yard and play sports and exercise. You can't even do that.
No.
It's worse than prison in a lot of
In a
ways.
lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, we're not done with the foreign elitism, by the way.
no, we're not.
Even
Anyway.
though even the water is source does not look clean.
Oh shit, you're in China.
The water source is never clean. I'm sorry to say, but you can't drink
You can't
the
drink
water.
the water in China.
No.
You just realized this or what? I guess they're drinking their like fancy ass. I'm not gonna.
No, we don't.
Guys.
Okay, look, there's a thing about Shanghai elitism, especially
It is.
amongst
It's a real
foreigners,
thing.
and we've been cupping a lot of shit from them over the years.
Oh man.
And that's
Even in the chat. And like, guys, you're our brothers and sisters too.
Yes.
We're all humans here. We just think that there should be equal representation for the Chinese people.
Yes.
Because they're always the losers in this.
Yeah.
Right? They always lose the worst.
Yeah, and
They can't actually put a video out. Imagine if a Chinese person put this video out.
Yeah.
They're fucked.
Yeah,
They're done.
exactly.
Their life's over.
Yeah, you
right?
can't complain like this.
That's not.
And then
it's
if
not
it's
fair.
not
It's
okay
just
to
not
bring-
fair.
It's not fair.
Please, I-
Okay, so now here's the height of this arrogance.
This is
okay?
beyond that. This
Yeah.
is like astronomically beyond that.
So a couple of the high level tanky pro CCP guys, the guys connected to Chinese state media.
I mean, one of them's labeled as Chinese. State
Yeah,
media.
of course. They decided that they're going to do this thing on Twitter, okay? So this guy says, we literally have too much food now, while hashtag China experts on the other side of the world are trying to convince you that people in hashtag Shanghai are starving to death. Again, the hashtags, it's a tanky thing, isn't
it's
it?
a dog whistle.
Yeah, it really is. Look at this ridiculousness. So he shows his food, like his haul, and he's like saying, look, I've got way too much food right now. So what is everyone talking about? Now, we have to put a bit of context into this. They did this little Twitter maneuver, this little stunt, a day after the Chinese government finally delivered a big food package to everyone. Okay?
You say everyone.
I mean, not everyone, to the top level people. Remember, we've told you about this. Shanghai hukou holders, and specifically foreigners, and absolutely 100% foreigners that are connected to media or have some kind of social media presence, have had priority over receiving these packages.
Confirmed, because I have friends there that did not receive jack shit.
Yeah.
Because they're not influencers.
Correct. Yeah.
Not to mention the Chinese people.
Yeah, no, of course. So while these people were bragging about, look at, I've got, 12 eggs and...
We literally have too much food right now. Who
Yeah.
writes that?
Yeah, it's...
When he fully knows what's happening. That's
Yeah.
the worst part.
And of course, the Chinese state media boredom guy here is like, don't judge me for the mess, and posts his well-stocked fridge.
It's like a slap in the face. Oh my God, if I was living there,
Yeah.
I would cry.
Well, I mean, one of the other foreigners living in China took exception to this, actually, and he posted a picture of his fridge, which is completely empty, and he named all these guys, said that the guy who started the thread is a douchebag, and so are all these other people that were named in the thread, and all the other useful white monkey idiots. Okay?
That's right.
Because, look, this guy's got literally like 3 bottles of water and a jar of pickles or something. I mean, a jar of like sauce. That's it. Okay? Anyway, like the guy who was like, we literally have too much food right now. When you take a look at his fridge, which is above us here, the guy with too much food, he's literally got a can of soda with cling wrap on it because he's
like
probably rationing it. He's got a 1 tin of Spam. You can look up that. This is way too much food, by the way.
Yeah.
Seriously, a bunch of
I
vegetables.
literally have too much food.
You've got to take that can of soda for scale, by the way. Refrigerators in China are small because apartments are small.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a tiny refrigerator.
Yeah.
And you can use that can of whatever it is, 7-Up or whatever, as scale. This is not a lot of food. This is enough to feed a family of 3 for like 2 or 3 days.
And this is the priority package.
Yeah, and this is like the guy saying, we literally have far too much food here. We just wanted to point out that somebody else received the exact same Spam. See, it's the same brand of Spam, and it looks a little off. What do you say?
Mean, that has to be either so old or had like an air leak in it.
It must have had an air leak.
That being said, this is the quality of food that people are receiving.
Yeah.
When you have people that are Chinese state media that go and say, look, everyone, I am so much more important than you.
Yeah.
The absolute, just especially this Andy guy, the sheer privilege and hypocrisy and lies. Because listen, we know we know that he knows what's happening. We know, I can tell you this for a fact.
Yeah.
But to go out there, I mean, probably state media calls someone up like this and goes, "Hey, can you how'd you like that package? Can you post your fridge now?"
Yeah, let's like try to squash rumors that people are starving.
The slap in the face to any Chinese people that have seen that.
Yeah.
That have big families, by the way. This guy's just one dude, right? Big families, kids, and everything, and they're getting their food stolen.
Yeah.
They're having to break the law
to
go like skirt around stuff and pay delivery drivers thousands of
RMB. Did we tell them last time?
I don't think so.
So a buddy of mine, in his building, the only way that they could get food is through these kind of clandestine delivery guys that are doing it under the table. But they will only, like, get this, to deliver KFC costs 6,000 RMB.
$1,000.
It's $1,000. And I think we did tell everyone. But the fact of the matter is, people have to club together to first get the $1,000 together to pay the delivery guy. Then they place like a group order for KFC, and then the guy like does it because it's high risk.
Yeah.
And kind of like
you get arrested.
Puts it over the wall at the back there and stuff. People are coming up with barter systems. There are people that are completely... They're lacking medicines, they're lacking food, all of this kind of crap. And you've got these arrogant assholes out there saying, "Oh yeah, what are you talking about? Let them eat cake, basically." Because look, I've got a fridge. They know. I got a fridge full of stuff. These people that are complaining that they don't have food, that's just being made up by some anti-China smear campaign or something.
Yeah, I mean, and these are the same guys that watch the pets get beaten to death.
Yeah.
And they have pets.
Correct.
Right? And they're like, well, hope that doesn't happen to me. You know what I mean?
they just don't acknowledge it. These are the guys that I called out when all the pets were being beaten to death.
And the thing is, in private, a lot of these people know what's happening.
Of course
right?
they do.
And they talk about it, right?
Yeah, they got it.
No, of course. And then later on, they'll say, yeah, that was an isolated case.
Sure.
And that was the guard that beat the dog. That was his personal choice, not the government.
Sure.
It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah, it's just, it's incredibly poor taste. That's why, somebody living in Shanghai at the exact same time would post something like this. They're like, screw you, man. Look at your brimming to the, full ass fridge. This is what I've got. Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
You cannot go out there and do a stupid publicity stunt like that and not insult the entire population of Shanghai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people are going through a hard time. You're making fun of them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely disgusting.